In 2008, Roald Dahl was rated as one of the top 50 writers of all time. His books have sold more than 250 million copies and have been translated in 63 languages. However, Dahl did not initially aspire to become an author after high school. It wasn't until several life-defining moments for him to realize he had potential. Today, in this video, we'll go through the events that led to the discovery of his talents. Around 1939, Dahl had moved to Tanzania to work as a salesman for the Shell Petroleum Company. This occurred around World War II. His first exposure to the war was when he was enlisted against his will to help the Tanzanian army round up German civilians. This was due to the British Army needing soldiers at the time and relying on those who were working in the country. As Tanzania was a British colony at the time, he was also instructed to place them into internment camps. Deciding that he wanted to experience more of the action, he decided to become a fighter pilot for the RAF. After training for a couple of months, Air Force officials sent Dahl to the Middle East. In one fateful day on the 19th of September 1940, Dahl crashed his plane. His instructions was to fly to two separate airfields to refuel and then meet up with his squadron. He was tasked to fly to the Nile River and in a small airfield near Alexandria for refueling. When he arrived at the specific location, Dahl noticed that something was wrong. There seemed to be no sign of a defined airfield or even a refueling station. He scanned north, south, east, and west, but still couldn't find anything. Noticing that his fuel supply was running dangerously low, he decided to try and land somewhere. While looking for a flat piece of land, Dahl's plane unfortunately hit a boulder and he crashed to the ground at approximately 120 kilometers per hour. Dahl had to spend months in the hospital, even suffering from temporary blindness. Fast forward to 1942, as the war was still roaring on. Dahl was appointed as an assistant air attaché, which is basically a commissioned officer of the Air Force, and was sent to Washington. In America, he met novelist C.S. Forster, who was working for the British Information Service. He was writing a piece for the Saturday Evening Post and wanted to talk to someone who experienced fighting in the war firsthand. Forster instructed Dahl to write about his experience. Until this point, Dahl had never considered himself to be a good writer. He wrote a draft transcript and sent it to Forster. Forster's original plan was to gather the information from Dahl and then modify it himself. When he read Dahl's work, he was blown away by how good the writing was and sent it to his agent without modification. He asked Dahl, "Did you know you were a writer?" After sending the manuscript to his agent, it was published in the Saturday Evening Post. Dahl earned $1,000, which would be worth about $19,300 today. It was originally titled A Piece of Cake, but the editor changed it to Shot Down over Libya. This exaggerated headline gave the impression that Dahl crashed because of a skirmish with enemy planes. Looking carefully at the original article, although it is subtitled A Factual Report, the article is written like it's a short story with its dialogue and descriptions. When reading closer, we can see many differences between the article and what actually happened to Dahl. In the article, Dahl was flying with 5 other planes, while the real-life accident occurred when he was flying by himself. He also describes bright little flashes as Italian planes, which is interesting considering no enemy planes caused Dahl's actual crash. The injuries in the article seem more severe as the protagonist suffers from shattered teeth and a missing nose. This excerpt shows a pilot's frustration with the smell of the cockpit, as well as his frustration with the CO. The writing style reminds me of passages in his first autobiography, Boy: A Tales of Childhood. In 1946, Dahl also published A Piece of Cake in his collection of short stories titled Over to You, 10 Stories of Flyers and Flying. This collection of short stories explored Dahl's experiences during the Second World War. Originally, the short stories were published separately in newspapers such as The Atlantic and Ladies' Home Journal. It also draws from his time in Africa. Unlike many of his well-known books, which were more light-hearted and targeted towards children, his short stories were written in a more reflective tone. The Piece of Cake included in this anthology is a revised version of the original article. It seemed that Dahl's simple prose and avoidance of contractions was inspired by another author, Hemingway. Well, there you have it. What seemed like a serious and life-threatening crash at the time eventually evolved Dahl into the creative writer we know today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.